Hi everyone, this is Dr. Katherine Kelly, and I wanted to touch base with you today about abandonment and how we abandon our own souls. In therapy world, what seems to be happening, or seems to happen, is that therapists go through these waves of receiving clients that have the same kinds of concerns that are going on, and for whatever reason, right now, a lot of abandonment issues are coming up. And by abandonment, what I mean is that people are experiencing things now as a result of having been abandoned as children, and whether that means emotionally abandoned, actually physically abandoned, meaning that they were neglected or abused, or maybe there was a divorce that happened very young, and the other parent that left, whichever one, didn't want anything to do with them, or didn't have the power within them to handle the stress, so they just kind of checked out. There's all kinds of ways that we can be abandoned in our lives. And what seems to be happening right now as a wave of clients coming in for me is that I've had client after client after client and a friend who has had some abandonment issues. And it's one of those things where if it's coming up like this, if that many incidences have come up, what it means to me is that I need to be doing some sort of addressing to this topic. Now, I want to also throw out there, by being an abandoned soul, a lot of times what ends up happening is that we turn around and then abandon ourselves and our souls later. What that means is that most abandonment issues cause us to just scramble to have relationships and do everything we can to keep people in our lives, and be super pleasers and super perfectionists, and really have this idea that we're not good enough because someone left in one way or another earlier. And what that does to us is it often causes us to abandon our own soul later. What I mean by that is that we give up self-care, that we don't set boundaries, that we think we are responsible for the happiness of the entire world at the expense of our own. And so there's another one. Some people have turned it into, the whole idea that they must not be good enough, and so they do everything they can, but it misaligns them. They do everything they can to basically win someone over, or they become very dependent on them emotionally. And the challenge with that is, in the midst of all of that scrambling, in the midst of all of that playing out of the abandonment from when you were younger, you lose yourself, you give too much, you put too much of yourself aside, you don't set boundaries, you don't really listen to what you need, and we abandon our own souls in that way. And, this whole week, I've had client after client after client, and then like I said, I had a friend who was dealing with some stuff this weekend. And so to me, I want to just bring this to your attention, that if you have abandonment issues, take a look at how you are abandoning yourself as well. Because we learn to pick up where someone left off, and if we felt abandoned as children or as young adults or as even adults in general, it just doesn't, it can impact you at any given time. If you feel abandoned, it very well likely it impacts you later. So look at how you are abandoning your own self and your own soul as a result of trying to scramble and try to pull yourself into a place where you're indispensable to someone, because that whole idea of abandonment plays out in so many ways in the human condition. But when we feel abandoned, oftentimes we abandon our souls, we abandon ourselves, we stop paying attention to what we need, we stop paying attention to what we need in order to align ourselves with our souls. And that is where I really want to press upon you today, is that if you've been abandoned as a child or as a young adult, or in any way, there's so many ways that you can feel abandoned or perceive to have been abandoned, it is likely playing out in a way that misaligns you from that center, misaligns you from your radiant living. And it's so important to start taking stock in, how am I playing out what someone else did to me earlier? And I'm going to repeat that. How am I playing out what happened as a result of someone else doing something to me earlier? If you have felt abandoned, again, through divorce, through a person dying, through just an emotional detachment, through whatever way that you perceive that you've been abandoned, look at how you are playing that out in your own life now, because you are likely abandoning yourself in one or more ways. one example, a person, is really having some relationship issues right now, and she's scrambling to hold on to this relationship, and yet this person's completely unemotional, completely emotionally detached, doesn't have a whole lot to give to them. And yet this other person is just holding on and holding on and holding on. And it's so important to step back and ask yourself, how am I abandoning myself? How am I abandoning my own soul? And what is that doing to my human condition? Because abandonment issues can cause extreme anxiety, can cause panic attacks, can cause extreme self-esteem issues, can cause depression, can cause unhealthy behaviors, any unhealthy behavior. And if you are abandoning your soul, you, again, as far as soul health goes, you are misaligning yourself. So that sense of scrambling to hold on to someone is really a sign that you're abandoning yourself in one way or another. You've got to step back and figure out what that's about, and that's why I'm really pressing this right now to help people understand that from a psychological perspective, we can have anxiety, depression, we can have self-esteem, we can have body image issues, we can have all these kinds of things that play out. But if you look deeper, it's because you're abandoning your own soul. You are abandoning yourself. You are abandoning yourself in the very same way that you feel someone has abandoned you in the past. And so that's how the human condition comes together with the soul condition, is that deep part of you was wounded at a very young age, or again, it could be in adulthood too. But what you're doing is you're playing it out by abandoning yourself. And so that's unfortunately what we do, is that our souls get wounded, and then we re-wound them and re-wound them and re-wound them, because that's what we experienced as a young person. That's whether it's a young person or, again, like an adult, we re-wound ourselves. We abandon ourselves because we've been abandoned. So that's how you have to start looking at how this soul condition, the soul thing, comes together with the human condition. I don't know how many times I've worked with folks that have had abandonment issues and they can't get unhooked. It's almost a visceral experience of feeling like they're connected or feeling disconnected from someone that they're really scrambling to be with. But what ends up happening is that they wound their souls again and again and again, because they aren't stepping back to be true to themselves and realize, wait, my behavior is really a direct reflection of abandoning myself and recapitulating, or in other words, reliving the exact same experience, the exact same feeling that we had when someone else abandoned us in the past. So that's how, again, we've got to start looking at, are we abandoning ourselves? So how is it that we abandon ourselves? We abandon ourselves by not taking care of ourselves, whether that is not through eating, whether that's not through taking care of ourselves physically in terms of exercise, whether that's beating up on ourselves, whether that's emotionally detaching from ourselves, meaning if you grew up with someone who is emotionally detached and you felt abandoned, are you taking a look at your own emotions? Are you just shutting them out like you felt shut out as a child? How else do we do it? We abandon ourselves by burying ourselves in work, or burying ourselves in some sort of hobby or achievement-oriented kind of thing, regardless of how the negative impact is on us. So what kind of negative impact it's making. We can get in multiple bad relationships. That's another way of abandoning yourself. Really, the most important thing to look at is, are you stepping back to really look at what you need? Or are you abandoning yourself by not taking care of yourself, whether it's through the human condition or the soul condition? So I just want to press this a little bit, because I'm hearing this theme of lots of people coming in right now with the abandonment issues bubbling up, and how they are abandoning themselves in the process. So I'm going to talk more about this in the future, but I think, I just wanted to plug this in for today, is, are you abandoning yourself, and are you abandoning your soul? And if so, how does that lead back? How does that connect to what has happened in the past for you? Because this is how we evolve, is being able to touch base with ourselves to go, wait a minute, this is connected to that. Awareness is the first key. I know it's cliche, but awareness is the first key. And then what do I need to do to not abandon myself? And that is the core of evolution, is to align yourself for radiant living. Get yourself aligned for your own sake, for your own soul. So take a look at that within yourself. How is it that you're abandoning yourself? Is it food? Is it drink? Is it friends? Is it what is it? But then take that look and look at what you can do to evolve from here. thanks. I would love to hear your comments, and this is a big one. This seems to be coming up and bubbling up as a theme. So have a great day.